The evening rush filled Harborview Diner in Seattle, Washington, with the hum of tired workers and families grabbing dinner. Emily, the quiet but sharp-eyed waitress, moved from table to table with her usual patience. She didn't mind the hard work. It paid the bills and kept her mind off her past one filled with courtrooms, lies, and a powerful man who ruined her father's life. She took orders with a soft smile, but her heart always carried a silent ache. Still, before approaching another table, she whispered to herself, "One day things will change." And as she passed the TV playing news above the counter, she murmured to a coworker, "People should subscribe to channels that tell truth, not hide it. Like Tale Story House. Stories matter." The bell on the diner door rang. A tall man in a dark coat walked in alone, quiet, almost heavy with thought. Emily noticed him because he didn't behave like the usual late-night guests. He sat slowly, hands trembling slightly, as though his mind was carrying too much weight. She approached with a friendly voice. "Good evening, sir. Long day?" He gave a small, empty smile. "You could say that. Just coffee. Strong." His voice held power, but also exhaustion. She brought his coffee and stepped back politely, but she kept watching him from the corner of her eye. His face looked strangely familiar, and after a few minutes, her coworker leaned in and whispered, "That's Nicholas High, the billionaire who owns half the tech companies on the West Coast." Emily froze. She had seen that name before on old court documents. Her father once worked for a company connected to Hale's empire. Her father had been framed in a corruption scandal years earlier, and no one ever listened. Nicholas finished his drink in silence, barely touching the food he ordered. He left 2 crumpled dollars on the table and walked out with his head down. $2? The cook muttered. From a billionaire? Emily sighed, not bothered by small tips anymore. She walked to clean the table, ready to move on to the next customer. But when she lifted the plate, something stopped her cold. There, tucked beneath it, was a folded piece of paper. At first, she thought it was a complaint, or a note with some rude message. But she unfolded it carefully, and her breath caught. Inside, written in rushed handwriting, were the words, "I need help. Someone inside my company is trying to kill me." Her hands shook. She looked around, expecting to see Nicholas still nearby, but he was gone. The street outside was dark and empty. Emily read the words again, slower this time, her heartbeat thundering. Why would a billionaire leave a message like this for a waitress he didn't know? As she stood frozen, her manager's voice snapped her back. "Emily, you okay?" She quickly pocketed the note. "Yeah, just tired." But she wasn't okay. She felt a strange pull inside her chest, a familiar instinct she had buried years ago. Before life fell apart, before the court case that ruined her father, Emily had studied forensic analysis and criminal justice. She once dreamed of being an investigator. Now she carried plates instead of solving crimes. She went home that night with the note hidden inside her jacket. She lived in a small rented room overlooking a noisy Seattle street, but she sat by the window, reading the message over and over again. She didn't know whether to trust it, but she also sensed fear between the lines. She remembered how her father once said, "Corruption always hides behind power. If you want to find truth, follow the fear." The next morning, Emily returned to work early, hoping Nicholas would show up again. Maybe he needed help. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe it was a trap. But hours passed, and he didn't come. Around lunchtime, the diner TV suddenly switched to breaking news. A reporter's voice filled the room. Billionaire CEO Nicholas High was rushed to Harborview Medical Center early this morning after a car crash believed to be caused by tampered brakes. Police are now investigating foul play. Emily's blood turned cold. It wasn't a prank, it wasn't a mistake. He had warned her. And then someone tried to get rid of him. She stepped away from the counter. Clutching the folded note in her apron dot, her coworker noticed her pale face and asked, "Emily, what's wrong?" But she didn't answer. She walked straight outside, breathing hard. She felt as if the world was pulling her into something bigger than her small life. That night, she went to the hospital. She told the nurse she was a friend. It wasn't completely true, but somehow it felt like she was meant to be there. She found Nicholas's room. Through the small window, she saw him lying unconscious, connected to machines, surrounded by guards. Someone didn't want him alive. "I shouldn't be here," she whispered. But she couldn't walk away. Suddenly, a man in a suit approached her. He wore a badge and a cold expression. "Are you Emily Dawson?" Her breath hitched. "Yes." "Why?" He looked her up and down. "Mr. Hawley asked for you before he passed out. He said you had something important." Emily's heart stopped. She reached into her apron and pulled out the folded paper. The guard's eyes widened. "Then you're the last person he trusted." Emily swallowed, fear swirling in her chest. "I'm just a waitress." The guard shook his head. "Not anymore." Emily felt the weight of the moment settle over her. Something inside her awakened, something she had locked away since her father's death. She didn't know what Nicholas wanted from her or why he chose her, but she knew she couldn't ignore it. The guard leaned closer. "If you help us, you might expose the people who tried to kill him." Her hands trembled. "And if I don't?" "Then they'll win," he said quietly. "Just like they did years ago with your father." Emily's breath caught. He knew. He knew everything. And suddenly, for the first time in years, Emily felt something powerful rising in her chest. Not fear, but purpose. She unfolded the note one more time, staring at the shaky words written by a man fighting for his life. "I need help." Emily whispered back, "You'll get it." But she had no idea that helping him would drag her into a storm of corruption, danger, betrayal, and a shocking truth she never imagined. Emily followed the guard down a quiet hospital hallway. The fluorescent lights hummed softly, but her heart pounded with every step. She felt the walls closing in as memories of her father flashed through her mind, his tired eyes, the way he begged people to listen, the way no one cared until it was too late. Now, a billionaire was in danger too, and somehow she was connected to all of it. She gripped the note tightly, as if it were the last piece of truth left in her hands. When they stopped near a private room, the guard said, "Hawley trusted you for a reason. Don't run from it." Inside the room, Nicholas Hawley lay unconscious, breathing weakly. Machines beeped in a slow rhythm. Emily stood quietly beside his bed, not sure why she felt a strange pull of responsibility. She whispered, "Why me? You don't know me." But then she remembered the look in his eyes when he entered the diner. He seemed like a man drowning silently, desperate for someone who wasn't after his money or power. Emily touched the folded paper again. "I'll help," she whispered, even though he couldn't hear her. Later that night, she returned home and spread the note on her kitchen table. She stared at it for long minutes before flipping it over. Her eyes widened when she saw faint Mark's letters pressed into the paper as if written on another sheet above it. She grabbed a pencil and lightly shaded over the surface. Slowly, hidden words appeared. "Check my office. Drawer 3. Red USB." Emily's breath caught. It wasn't just a cry for help. It was a clue. She didn't know whether she was brave or foolish, but she went the next morning to Hawley Enterprises, a massive glass building in downtown Seattle. She walked into the lobby with shaking hands. The receptionist looked confused when Emily said, "Mr. Hawley asked me to retrieve something from his office." Before the woman could argue, the guard from the hospital appeared behind Emil. "She's with me." His tone made the receptionist back away instantly. They rode the elevator to the 45th floor, where the hallways felt too silent, too clean. The guard unlocked Hale's office and stepped aside. "Be quick." If the people who did this find out we know, they'll come for you too. Emily's legs felt weak, but she pushed forward. She opened drawer 1, empty. Drawer 2, full of documents, but nothing marked red. Then drawer 3, there it was. A small red USB drive taped to the underside of the drawer. She ripped it off and handed it to the guard, but he shook his head. No, Nicholas wanted you to find it. And for you to see what's inside first. Her stomach tightened. Why me? Because he said you are someone who couldn't be bought. Someone who already lost too much to corruption. Emily plugged the USB into Hale's office computer. Hundreds of files appeared: financial records, private emails, secret contracts. One folder was labeled. A betrayed mesh opened it slowly. Her heart dropped. There were names, powerful ones. Board members, investors, partners, people tied to Seattle politics. And next to each name, a line. Approved assassination attempt. Emily felt sick. This is bigger than I thought. They were trying to take over his company. The guard nodded, and this proves it. Before Emily could remove the USB, the elevator dinged. Heavy footsteps echoed down the hallway. The guard whispered sharply, "Hide." Emily ducked behind a filing cabinet just as 2 men in suits entered the office. One spoke in a cold voice. "We need that drive. If Holly wakes up, we're finished." Emily held her breath until her lungs ached. Her hands trembled as one of the men walked dangerously close to her hiding spot. He paused, then turned back toward the desk. The guard stepped forward. "You're not allowed here." The men glared. "Move." And then chaos erupted. The guard fought them off long enough for Emily to slip out of the office and sprint toward the elevator. She pressed the button again and again, praying it would open faster. Her heart slammed against her ribs as footsteps thundered behind her. When the elevator finally opened, she jumped inside and slammed the close button. One of the men lunged forward, but the doors shut just in time. Emily gasped for air as the elevator descended, her mind spinning. She clutched the USB in her fist. "I have to save him," she whispered, "and I have to finish what my father couldn't." She didn't go home. She went straight to the police, real detectives this time, not the corrupt ones her father faced years ago. She handed over the files, told them everything, and showed them the note. The lead detective leaned back slowly. "Miss Dawson, this could take down an entire network." Emily swallowed hard. "Then take it down." Hours later, the arrests began. Board members were dragged out of offices. Homes were raided. Powerful men who believed they were untouchable suddenly found themselves cornered by evidence they couldn't escape. And as the news flashed across every screen in Seattle, Emily stood outside the hospital watching the headlines scroll. She couldn't believe it. For the first time in years, she felt her father's memory clear instead of heavy. "We did it," she whispered. When Nicholas woke days later, Emily was called to his room. She stepped inside nervously. He looked weak but awake, his eyes softening when he saw her. "You found the note," he said, voice rough. Emily nodded. "You trusted me. I couldn't walk away." He gave a faint smile. "Most people see a waitress and assume she's powerless. But you saved my life and my company." She shrugged shyly. "I just did what was right." Nicholas studied her for a long moment. "Your father would be proud." Her eyes filled. "You knew about him?" "I did," he admitted. "And I'm sorry. What happened to him was wrong." Emily wiped her tears quickly. "I can't change the past, but maybe helping you helped me heal." Nicholas smiled weakly. "Emily, once I recover, I want you on my team. I want someone honest, someone who sees what others don't, not as a waitress, but as part of my investigative department. Full salary, full training. A fresh start." Emily blinked in shock. "Me? You?" he said softly. You're the reason I'm alive." For the first time in years, Emily felt a real future open in front of her, not one shaped by pain, but by purpose. As she walked out of the hospital into the cool Seattle air, she whispered to herself, "Justice didn't die with my father. It just waited for me." And from that moment forward, Emily Dawson was no longer just a waitress. She was the woman who brought down corruption and rose into a life she never imagined.